This is the Learn How podcast with Andy Isom, and you're listening to episode number 10. What's up? Welcome back to the Learn How podcast. In this episode, once again, I have the privilege of sitting down with one of my very good friends, Adam Law. And Adam actually happens to be somewhat related to me, I guess you could say, in a way. And you'll learn a little bit more about that in the episode. But Adam is currently a professional baseball player in the Seattle Mariners organization. And in this episode, I'm talking with Adam about his journey of becoming a professional baseball player, the challenges and trials that he's had to overcome, including taking a 2-year break during the middle of his career to serve a mission in Zimbabwe. He lived in Africa, and we're going to talk a little bit about his experiences there and how that shaped him to become the person that he is today. We're also going to talk a little bit about how Adam has been able to deal with pressures and expectations of coming from a very athletic and successful family. Adam's grandpa, Vern, won the 1960 Cy Young Award with the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's the award given to the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. Adam's father, Vance, also played Major League Baseball and was an All-Star in 1988 with the Chicago Cubs. So he comes from a very athletic family. Adam also won 2 state championships as a high school basketball player, and we'll talk a little bit about his love for basketball. He's also a great golfer, a great table tennis player, and has a lot of hidden talents, including playing the ukulele, the harmonica, and a lot of other interesting things. Like I said, Adam served a mission in Zimbabwe for 2 years, played his college baseball at BYU here in Provo, Utah, was a first-team All-West Coast Conference performer, led the team in hits, stolen bases, batting average, on-base percentage, and a handful of other accolades to go along with his college baseball career. And then, like I mentioned, he was drafted in the 12th round by the Los Angeles Dodgers and was later traded and currently plays in the Seattle Mariners organization. So let's get right to the interview with Adam. All right, I'm here with my good friend, Adam Law. Adam, thanks for joining us today on the Learn How podcast.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Like I mentioned in the intro, me and Adam are kind of like brothers, I guess, but not technically. So Adam's sister is married to my brother. So, I mean, I guess that kind of makes us family in a way. But me and Adam go way back. I mean, we've been playing basketball and baseball, like I mentioned, since we were kids. Got the opportunity to play college baseball together for a couple years. And now Adam is doing really big things. So I wanted to get Adam on the show to talk a little bit about his journey with professional baseball and how he's been able to overcome these types of trials. So Adam, let's talk a little bit about your journey from high school to college. So you grew up around baseball, like we talked about in the beginning, but you were also a really good basketball player. Did you have a hard time kind of deciding which path to pursue, like if you wanted to pursue basketball or baseball?
Yeah, and I still, to this day, basketball is my first love. It's my favorite sport to watch. It's one of my favorite sports to play. I'm learning to love baseball a lot more now. But, I just kind of went with what my heart felt, and my heart felt that I should play baseball. It gave me an opportunity first to serve a 2-year mission for the church. I think had I gone and played basketball elsewhere, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And so I'm thankful that I ended up choosing baseball, because then it led into kind of this path where I was able to serve a 2-year church mission.
I like that you said basketball was your first love. That's what I actually tell people too. Like I said, we got to play baseball together in college, but basketball actually is my first love too. It's the sport that I probably enjoy a little bit more than baseball, but it's one of those things where I was a little bit better baseball player, so that's kind of what I pursued. And so I think that applies to kids who are doing anything. Like yeah, you want to follow your passion, but then at the same time, I think it's important to make sure you're giving yourself the best opportunity to be successful and to give yourself the best chance of success in whatever you're doing. So it's kind of like that balance between like passion and what you're best at.
Absolutely.
So you made it through high school. You won a couple state championships in basketball, was a great baseball player, and had the opportunity to play college baseball. And something that I thought was kind of interesting when I was thinking about, our interview was that me and you both, we're not exactly like the biggest guys out there. We're not short by any means, but we're not the biggest guys. And I think that's a roadblock a lot of young kids face is they're like, I'm too small, I'm too short. How were you able to kind of overcome that and I guess like play bigger than your size was?
Right. That's a good question. I think, well, first of all, had I grown to be like your brother, Willie, 6'6", maybe I would have pursued basketball a little bit more because physically I would have been, eye level with the rest of the competition. But, I'm only 6'1", and basically baseball, what's so great about baseball is that you can be any shape and size to be able to be an all-star. The MVP of the major in the AL this year in the major leagues was Jose Altuve, and I think he lists himself at 5'6", which really means he's probably 5'4". And so, whether or not it's a roadblock that I was smaller, I didn't mature until later in my life, like when I was 20 or 21. But I just kept on putting in the work, and I did my best to master my body, the movements of the baseball swing, of the throw, of fielding ground balls. And because I was able to master those techniques, it then in turn, when I finally physically matured, the strength came, and because those techniques were mastered, I was able to then, produce, whether hitting home runs or doubles or whatever, stealing bases. And so I didn't really focus on my size. Rather, I focused on the process of getting myself in the best position so that when the size came, I already had the techniques mastered.
Along with that, like I like how you said that you just focused on just mastering the techniques, no matter what your size, because you can't control that, but you can control how hard you work and, how much time you put into mastering your skills. And then you just let it play out how it plays out, like you don't really know how big you're going to be physically when you get older, but what you can control is how hard you work. And I wanted to ask as well, confidence is a big part of being an athlete. How does confidence play a part, or how important is confidence as an athlete?
Absolutely. Confidence it's probably more important than any type of physical skill that a player or a person can possess. If you can be confident in yourself, by being confident in yourself, you then do not have to worry about what others think about you. Now, I think it's an important lesson to learn that you got to be quietly confident. You don't want to be, in my opinion, outwardly confident where you come off as cocky or somebody who your teammates don't want to be around. But if you can be quietly confident where you are your biggest support, where you believe in yourself the most, you can do so much more than had you relied on somebody else to boost you up or to kind of put you in a better position to succeed. If you can believe in your own self, which is something that I've tried to do. I walked on at BYU to play college baseball. Nobody really believed in me. But heck, I believed in myself, and I thought, I could do it. I just got to continue to work at it. And so having the self-confidence is so important to not only in athletics, in life, in school, and it's something that can really propel you forward.
I think that's so important. And it's funny because in our last interview with McLean, where we were talking about doing sales and approaching cold calling, stuff like that, you need a lot of confidence in that as well. And something that McLean said was you have to really be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And it totally applies in sports as well. Like baseball, especially like when you're batting, like That's an uncomfortable situation. It's you versus the pitcher. And if, you're playing pro baseball or college baseball, there's a lot of people watching you and, there's a lot of pressure and it's an uncomfortable situation. But that's, I think, a really important way to build confidence. And you had a really interesting life experience where you decided to put yourself in a quite the uncomfortable situation. You went and lived in Africa for 2 years to serve a mission for the LDS Church. What was that like to move to Zimbabwe and to Africa from like a cultural perspective?
Yeah. A lot of people ask me this question. And first and foremost, people think that we're crazy, those of us who leave for 2 years to serve a church or a mission for the LDS Church. From a cultural perspective, as you can imagine, it was quite eye-opening. A lot of the landscape, the living conditions, the demographics are what you see in National Geographic magazines or on television. And a lot of people kind of in the bush is what they call it. And, they're living meal to meal, day by day, where here in the States or other first world countries, we have the opportunity to know where our next meal is coming from. We have the chance to eat 3, 4, 5, 6 meals a day if we so choose, where, over there, like I said, they're living meal to meal. They're growing their own food. They have to work for it. And so from a cultural perspective, it was just incredibly eye-opening, incredibly humbling to see how happy the people were, even though the amenities that we consider to be necessary, they don't even know exist. And that was probably my biggest takeaway is you can be happy without having all of the possessions that we think are necessary here in the States or other first world countries.
I love that because I think a lot of entrepreneurs these days, especially young kids, who have big dreams and big goals, I think they get caught up, and we get caught up too much in the material things, thinking, oh, if only I had this much money, I'd be happy, and if only I could buy this watch or this car, I'd be happy. But yeah, I was able to live in Brazil for 2 years, and same sort of thing. That's what really stuck out to me too, was how happy people can be and how happy you can be with just the very simple necessities of life. And so, yeah, it really is a humbling experience. So something else that's really cool about Adam is you were one of the few white people in Africa, but you were also one of the few that could speak their language. What were some of the languages that you were able to basically teach yourself while you were there?
Right. So in Zimbabwe, there are primarily 2 African tribes. One is the Shona and the other is the Ndebele. And most of the white people who live and grew up in Zimbabwe, they don't immerse themselves in the culture of the Black African tribes. And so as missionaries, we're sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with the majority of the population who are Black African. And so, yeah, the two languages, Shona and Ndebele, I had to learn them. That was how I could communicate. Quite a few people spoke English, and that's what they were taught as their second language in school. But if needs be, as a white guy, I had to speak their language, and some of the expressions on their faces, seeing a white guy show up to their door in the middle of a village, doing not only speaking their language, but also their cultural things where, you don't knock on the door or the gate of the house. You get on bended knee and you clap a certain way. You don't make eye contact with the head of the house. And so to see an outsider doing that, respecting their culture, was not only humbling for me, but I also think exciting for the people who I was able and had the privilege of meeting and sharing the gospel with.
That's so crazy. Can you share with us just a sentence or two of the languages that you learned?
Yeah. So, Ndebele is the click language. This is the favorite one that people like to hear, and kind of one of the tongue twisters that I was told that I needed to learn to help enunciate certain sounds and different noises is this. It goes, and so that sentence means the old man walked up the mountain to cut the grass. Super simple, but it covers basically all of the clicks and the difficult kind of combinations of consonants with the clicks to help prepare yourself. And that took me, 5 months to be able to master. There's a couple sounds in there that are pretty difficult. And, it just kind of came, and I was lucky to be able to have that.
That is seriously, still to this day, I have heard Adam speak this language like so many times. Literally every time he comes over, I ask him to say something, and it seriously never gets old. It is like the most amazing thing to me. And you really didn't have like a teacher, right? Like you didn't have like a class that's like, oh, let's go to Shona class. It was like you on your own, like, I don't know, like with the locals, just listening and practicing.
Yeah, I learned basically by 100% complete immersion into the culture, into the language. My companion, my mission companion spoke the language, and so he was able to help me throughout the course of the day, but we never had a designated time for him to teach or language learning or anything like that. So there's a lot of questions coming from me, and bless their hearts for being patient and helping me be able to master and speak these languages.
That's seriously so amazing. So along with the crazy languages and stuff like that, I mean, you were eating mice, you were catching field mice and eating them, you were eating bugs, like we're talking dirt floors. Seriously, like what you said, like it's like living in a National Geographic like film, like straight from the plains of Africa, basically. So what was it like after transitioning and, like you said, totally immersing yourself in that culture? What was it like then to come back to the United States? Like that first week back, what was that like for you?
The transition from African life to American life was 10 times harder than the transition from American life to African life. I remember the first time I saw myself in a mirror, after a while, I was shocked that I was white. I became so immersed and so dedicated, and I just honestly felt just like a local. And so to now come back to the United States after 2 years, it was really hard. It was really hard to see, my parents took me out to a nice dinner with our whole family of 7 or 8, and they spend $200. And I remember just thinking how like embarrassing, or how the people in Africa could use that money so much more than me eating a nice steak. So that part was really difficult. The other difficult part that comes to mind was the transition to the food, with all of the grease and the fats and the processed things that, in white bread and pasta, and my stomach really didn't take to it. It probably took me a year or two until I could really feel comfortable eating sugary stuff or, floury processed things. And it really, that was really hard on me. I couldn't eat ice cream for a while. And every time I did, it came up right back where it went down. So that was also really hard for me to adjust.
Are there any like cultural, I don't know if you would call them habits, but like, are there any cultural things from your experience in Africa that you still practice today or do today? Like, do you ever see like a grasshopper outside and just think like, hey, maybe I'll just snag that like for a quick snack? Or like, I don't know. Is there anything that you still like actively do, I guess, that you did when you were in Africa?
Well, along those lines, I was over at your parents' place, I don't know, a week or two ago, and your dad had bought either crickets or grasshoppers or something. I hadn't had one since I was in Zimbabwe, and I was pretty pumped up to throw a few of those back. Brought back some good memories, but I don't know if I do anything consciously like consciously of what I had picked up in Africa, I honestly think, my whole personality or my emotional state has changed from my experiences in Africa. And so I think it's kind of ingrained I do my best to not focus on the worldly things. Obviously I still do. And, new electronics are cool, but I try to take a step back and think about, what it would be like if I was in Africa at this time. I wouldn't need the latest iPhone or the latest iPad or whatever. And so hopefully the things that I learned on my mission in Zimbabwe have ingrained in me where it's not something that I think about. Rather, it's just a whole personality or a whole change within my person.
Yeah, that's good. I really wish that, everyone would have the opportunity to go to Africa or a place like that. Not even for 2 years, but, just for like a little while, because it only takes a week or a couple of weeks to really have, a whole change of mindset and just gratitude. And, like you said, to really appreciate what we have here. And I think it is life changing. Like that's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So coming back to the US and adjusting, you got back on the baseball field. What was that like to come back from a 2-year break? I mean, you were not playing baseball at all for 2 years in Africa. What was that like to come back, get back into Division I college baseball, and be very successful?
Yeah, that was also a really tough adjustment. My body, I hadn't thrown, I hadn't hit, I hadn't lifted weights. All I was allowed to do, we had 30 minutes of kind of exercise time where I would do sit-ups and push-ups and stuff, but no baseball movements. And so I got back in, middle of August, and school starts the first week of September, fall ball, everything like that. So I was playing catch up, and again, trusting the process of not worrying about the future, not worrying about my past, but only what I could control at that time. And at the time, I felt like the only thing I could control was being smart with how I lifted the weights, how many swings I took, how many balls I threw, in order to keep myself on the right path to getting back and ready to play, instead of overdoing it, injuring myself, and having a setback. So it was really tough to kind of pull the reins back, because I had the big picture in mind where I needed to stay healthy instead of go, and then end up hurting myself. So it was really tough to kind of pull those reins, but I'm happy that I did, and with the help of coaches and staff, kind of put me on the right program in order to successfully do that.
I think that's a great lesson that applies to entrepreneurship as well, because I see so many young kids, teenagers that just want to like start their own business or create something amazing. And it takes patience. I mean, you have to be patient. You got to work hard every day, but you have to have, the big picture vision to realize, hey, this is going to take some time. Like you said, you can't just, go all out, go crazy, hurt yourself, and, essentially ruin your future. But you have to be smart about the way you're going about building your success. And I think that's something that can apply to entrepreneurs as well, as just keep in mind that it's a long game. I mean, we're all young. It's going to take a few years. But if we do, stay consistent, then good things will happen. So a couple years after getting back from Africa, your first team, all West Coast Conference, you led the team in hits, stolen bases, led the team in batting average, on base percentage, like your team captain. So you make your way back and you start to see you have a real chance of playing professional baseball. What was that like for you once you started to realize, hey, like teams are, coming to watch me, like I'm getting looked at, and then leading up to the draft, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I think I've always wanted to be a professional athlete, whether that was to play golf, basketball, or baseball. And for now, I enter my junior season with a little bit of hype, and, scouts are talking to me. They're coming over, they're calling, doing whatever. And to see that dream start to become a reality of moving on to the next level It was exciting. It really was exciting. It was exciting for me, for my family, for my friends. But at the same time, I had a college season to focus on. I had teammates who I was loyal to and who were also loyal to me. And my dad, who has gone down the same path as I have, he sat me down and said, hey, yeah, you're probably going to get a chance to play at the next level. That's going to be a given. But if you get too focused on that in the future, you're going to screw up what's going on in the present. You may lose positive relationships with your teammates or with your coaches. And maybe you won't be able to play as well because you're focused on something that, again, I couldn't control. And so I was thankful for that conversation, and then went right back to taking it day by day, getting myself, 1% better each day. And yeah, then the draft happened and kind of some good things happened from there.
So you're drafted in the 12th round by the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then, you're getting started with your first season in the minor leagues. And something that I think is interesting is a lot of people don't really understand how difficult it really is to be a professional athlete. I think some of us kind of think, oh, you're a pro athlete, your life is so easy. I mean, you get paid to play baseball or, do a sport for a living. Like, that's got to be so easy. But what was that first year like, and what were some of the challenges that you had to face during that first year as a professional athlete?
That's also a really good question. I grew up around professional sports and with my dad and grandfather who both played, but being drafted and then getting thrown into it was, aside from stepping off of the plane in Africa, the second most eye-opening experience that I've ever had. I don't even know where to start. I didn't even know in the minor leagues that there are 6 and sometimes 7 levels in the minor leagues that you have to advance to. Started right at the very bottom in rookie ball. So trying to focus again on the present and staying present with where I was at, even though it was at the very bottom of the levels, and just trying to get myself better, trying to not worry about who was doing what in the level ahead of me or 2 levels ahead of me. And luckily, you have your ups and downs throughout the course of a season and just continue to press forward. Also in professional baseball, you play every single day. And I wasn't used to that. In college, you play 4 to 5 times a week. In the minor leagues, we play 140, maybe 144 games throughout the course of 150 or 152 days. So getting your body used to that, getting your mind used to that is a struggle each and every day. I think even for the most established major league players is getting your mind and body to play every single day.
What kind of stuff do you do mentally to get ready for, a season like that, or to stay mentally focused for that long period of time?
Luckily, there's a lot of sports psychologists and mental performance coaches who help us and who have taught us different ways that we can be able to do just that, getting ready for a long season, or if you're in the middle of a season. And so some of the tactics or things that I have adopted is, first and foremost, having an outlet to get away from the game. So the game finishes at 10 or 11 at night. I go home and I have an outlet to be able to get myself, my mind away from the game, or else I'll drive myself crazy, because when I wake up in the morning, you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about the opposing pitcher, what he's going to do to try to get me out. And so when I go home, I either read a book, or I play my ukulele, or I listen to music. Another thing that I have done ever since I first was drafted, right after the game, after we eat or whatever, I have a journal and I write 3 things down in it each and every day. And this can apply to sports. This can apply to business. This can apply to whoever. I write down what I did good that day or that game. I write down what I did bad that game. And I write down what I can improve on, or what I will improve on the next day. And then I close the book, and that's kind of like an example of when I close the book, my day is closed, the game's finished, and I move on. I no longer dwell on if I struck out or if I hit a home run. I no longer dwell on that. I dwell on what I'm going to improve on the next day, and that helps me get my mind away from just the constant grind of the minor league or of the baseball season.
One last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is you're kind of in that unique situation where your grandpa was a very successful Major League Baseball player. Your dad was a successful Major League Baseball player. How do you deal with like those outside expectations from others who just kind of think, oh yeah, you're Adam Law, like, you know, you're supposed to play Major League Baseball, you're supposed to be good at baseball. How do you handle that kind of pressure or those expectations from others?
That's a good question. And again, this has been something that's been really difficult for me early on. I think the past couple of years, I've gotten away from worrying about what other people think. I remember in high school, you know, articles would be written about what our high school team did or All-Star selections, maybe teams that I had made, and then reading the comments below about what people would say. And it used to bug me because some of the time they weren't very nice comments. And I let those expectations of the successes of my father and of my grandfather get to me thinking, oh, I'm going to be a failure if I don't get there. But how I've been able to handle those expectations is I do what I think I need to do, meaning practice, weightlifting. I put everything into my craft or my career to the point where at the end of the day, I can look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, I gave it my all. So whether or not I have a successful major league career, whether or not I go to spring training next week and get released and get cut, at the end of the day, I can look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, I did all that I could. So if I got released, I still feel comfortable with the work that I put in. And that's been the most comforting thing for me with regards to the expectations is I know that I did all that I could and maybe I just wasn't good enough. Now I hope obviously that's not the case, but if it is, I feel comfortable with what I did. And the second thing is my dad has done such a great job at not forcing me to follow in his footsteps. He never once told me, hey, we want you to be a professional athlete. He never told my brothers or my sisters, hey, this is what we want you to do. He left the options open for us and never made us feel pressure to be able to do that. I have two brothers who are very successful in their respective careers, and my dad is just as proud of them as he is of me who is, you know, playing baseball or whatever. And so basically I'm just following my heart. I'm following with what I'm good at. And I'm putting in the work to where at the end of the day, I can be like, hey, I did all that I can to help myself achieve my dreams and my goals.
If a young entrepreneur, or not even a young entrepreneur, but let's just say if a young kid came up to you in a similar situation, maybe not athletics, but let's say his dad is a doctor and all of his uncles are doctors, and that's just like that family expectation that you know you need to be a doctor, but that's maybe not something that he feels he wants to do with his life. What kind of advice would you give him if he was struggling to, you know, deal with that pressure or expectation? What's one thing you would say to him?
I'd tell the young boy or the young girl or whoever, follow your heart. Follow your heart. If you don't want to be a doctor, don't be a doctor. Because chances are, if you're going to be a doctor and you don't want to be, you're not going to have fun doing it anyway. If you're going to have fun being a bus driver, then go be the best bus driver out there. Be a teacher, be the best teacher out there. Do what's going to make you happy, not what's going to please others, because in the long run, they're probably going to pass on before you and you're going to be left with doing something that you don't want to do. So I would say follow your heart. And then once you make that decision, be the best of that decision that exists in the world.
Adam, thanks so much for joining us on the Learn How podcast. And I just want to wish you luck on the upcoming season as you prepare for spring training, and wish you all the best with your goals and with your career.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Andy. You're the best, man. You inspire me to be better and to follow my own dreams just like you follow yours, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Take care.
All right, man.
There you have it, guys. Adam Law doing big things on and off the field. If you learned something in this podcast, or if you enjoyed this podcast, if you would please do me a huge favor and jump on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you're listening to this podcast and leave me a short review. Even if it's just to click a few stars, it would really help me out, help me improve, and help us create better content for you. Once again, guys, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next episode.